The first part of this lesson was all about interpreting a confidence interval, and now we're going to start looking at how to actually create or construct one. So you'll need some math here. It's not a lot of math, but you will need some, and we'll put it all together. So the confidence interval for estimating a population parameter has this form. So this is how we find that interval of values we're willing to accept for our possible parameter. So we kind of have that lower bound and that upper bound. So we take our statistic or our point estimator and we add or subtract it from the critical value. We'll learn about those in just a moment. And we multiplied that to the standard deviation of the statistic. That second part, that critical value times the standard deviation, gives us our margin of error. So there's a step we have to do to find our margin of error. So our point estimator is usually going to either be p hat or x bar. Those are the most common, although I have seen problems with means or medians instead. So no, the confidence level could be set to any value. It doesn't have to be 95% confidence, although that is the most common. We could make it 20% confident. I'm only 20% confident. But that means what you're telling someone is that, hey, I'm putting accuracy over this confidence. I want something super close to my true parameter, and I'm only going to hit it 20% of the time. Another way, though, you can increase confidence is really by increasing that sample size. And of course, that's, if you think about it, it makes sense because increasing your sample size lowers your standard deviation. Oh, let's think about this. If this standard deviation gets smaller, then our margin of error would also get smaller, and we're more likely to hit our true population parameter. So what is a critical value? It's a multiplier that makes the interval wide enough to have the specified confidence level. We're going to go back to z-scores and the normal table A. So we're really looking at the number of standard deviations away from our point estimator. And it'll make sense when we look at the next page. We have to be really careful how we use table A to find our critical values. But we do have this kind of cheat sheet on these notes right here. I really want to stress to you to try to memorize at least these three. These are the most common interval values that you're going to see, the 90%, the 95%, and sometimes the 99%. I really want to stress to you to try to memorize those three. If you remember, whenever we do a normal distribution like this, if this is our sampling proportion and we want a 95% confidence, we would mark off our number line here with the number of standard deviations. Now this is our sampling distribution, so this is what we're willing to accept from our sample, is how far from our point estimate. So this could be p hat or whatever we're using here. So right up here it does say that 90% would be 1.64. That would be our critical value. So for this model, we're allowing our standard deviation S just to be some unknown value. So by giving critical value of 1.64 times the standard deviation, so in this case it's an unknown standard deviation, we're just going to call it S, and that's going to give us our margin of error. So what I'm seeing is that somewhere between 1 standard deviation and 2 standard deviation, that's my margin of error or my interval. We want 90% of that inside value to represent my confidence interval here. So this is the area I'm looking for. So let's go back to the main question, which was, how do we use table A here? Well, table A does not help us with this confidence interval, unfortunately, because Table A causes an issue because it only is showing the lower tail of our distribution. It doesn't show the inside portion, which is we don't cut off this tail that we don't want. So we're going to have to do that when we do these kind of problems. Table A causes a problem because it only shows the lower tail. So what we need to do is I'm looking for this Z value. I need this number right here. So I need to include back this part of the lower tail that gets cut off in the distribution. Going back to my sample distribution, I need to add in this value right here in order to get this z-score. So I'm going to show you how we get the 1.64. So since this is 90%, I can quite easily calculate what these tails equal. So this tail right here is going to, of course, be 5%, and this is also going to be 5% of our value down here. So really what I want to look up on our table is the closest value to 0.95. So that 0.9500, I've got to look through the body of my table A. All right, so looking through it is never fun. I'm looking right, let's see, 94, there we go. So let's see, so 94, okay, this is one of those between ones. So if I go back here, all right, so 1.6, it's right between. Now they said 4, it's really 1.645 if we're right between, if we want to be even more accurate. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. It's falling right between 0.9500 falls right between those two values. So I would go right between here. So the 0.1645. That would be the very, very accurate if you want to add that in, if you want to be very precise and really show off on your AP exam. You'd actually use 1.645 and not 1.64, but they honestly don't care which one you use. So ultimately, why do we actually have to do this? Well, every once in a while, they're going to give you one that's going to be odd. So this one now asks us to find a 68% confidence interval. So I'm going to speed things up a little bit because I'm sure you're getting bored. If you remember from our empirical rule, 68% confidence level is one standard deviation from the mean. So this shouldn't be that difficult to find. So our critical value should equal 1 since it's one standard deviation away from the mean. But just out of curiosity, let's go ahead and include that lower tail. So 100 minus 68% means that each of these areas is 34% divided by 2, or sorry, 32% divided by 2 would be 16%. So that tail, 16% plus 68%, means that from the lower tail to this point is 84% of our total. I don't know why I put that twice, but I did. So that's what we're going to look up, is we're going to look up 0.84 on our z-score table. All right, so we're looking for 0.84, or the closest number to 0.84. All right, and it looks like I've got two numbers that are close. So here's where it switches, 0.8413 and 0.8389. And which one is closer? It's actually 0.99 is actually the closer one. So that's kind of crazy. So these are the lies that statistics tells you right there, is that actually 0.99, but that's the closest one to one standard deviation, and that's why we just go ahead and round that to 68%. So what's going on here? Since the actual z-score, when we look it up, is 0.99, just realize the empirical rule is rounding for simplicity. When we look up one standard deviation of the z-score, the closest percent is 84%. We cut off that 16 and we get that middle. So don't panic when you don't get a 1. It's just rounding to this nice 84, which is an easy number to work with. On the AP exam, it's much easier to use a critical value of 1 than 0.99. They will accept either, but just stick with 1. And that also brings us back to 95%. We've been teaching you that 95% is 2 standard deviations away from the mean. But take a look here. That's why this is called Z star, because Z star is the critical value based not on the parameter, but the statistic. So notice we've even been rounding this number up. We said that 95% is 2 standard deviations away from the mean because that simply is the closest one. But it's not exactly 2 standard deviations, it's actually 1.96. And we've been rounding that value up. So there is another table that you're going to be provided on the AP exam, and we're going to take a look at this in class since we're running out of time here. But there's a table B, and this is known as the T-score table. So the T-score table has a normal line at it when it's equal to infinity. I'll show that to you in class, and eventually when we get to T-scores, I'll be giving those tables out. What's nice about this is when you're on the AP exam and you panic and you don't remember which one is 1.96 and which one is 1.64 and what you're supposed to be using for your confidence intervals, all of the values are actually on that table and you can use it as a reference. It only gives the common ones, but it gives you enough that you're more likely than not going to be able to use it on the AP exam.